Jay Powell admitted it. The data isn't going his way. Let's talk about yet another Powell pivot today on the Weekly Update.
Okay, friends, Powell pivots again. Here's what you need to know. First up, in a recent interview, Jay Powell has finally discussed the second inflation wave. Now, this is something that we've been tracking on the channel for a little bit now, and it's nice to see Jay Powell finally agrees with us. Here's what he said. This is the Financial Times reporting. I'm going to quote Jay Powell here. We've said at FOMC meetings that we'll need greater confidence that inflation is moving sustainably towards 2%, that's their target, before it would be appropriate to ease policy. That's what he said on Tuesday. The recent inflation data have clearly not given us greater confidence, and instead indicates that it's likely to take longer than expected to achieve that confidence. This was huge. This was Jay Powell sort of finally agreeing with what we could see in the market. You know, if you've been following the channel for probably the last 3 weeks now, we've been talking about this second inflation wave and the thought that eventually Jay Powell is going to be forced here. Up until this point, he was saying, yes, we're still doing rate cuts. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's under control. And then on Tuesday with this interview, he finally admitted, hey, things may not actually be under control. And unsurprisingly, the market has sold off, interest rates have spiked, European markets suffered their worst day in 9 months, Asian currencies are moving lower. There were all sorts of impacts of this statement from Jay Powell, so the market is taking it very seriously. If we look on the interest rate side of things here for a second, this is the 10-year Treasury. This is just a year-to-date chart, and what you notice is rates are going up pretty much linearly all year long. And then as soon as we got into April, when you could start to detect the second inflation wave, you can see that rates have started to tick up even faster. So what does this mean? Well, this is pricing on things like mortgages, things like cars, business loans, etc. As these interest rates go higher, what that's going to tell us is the economy is probably going to be further suppressed or suppressed for longer. This is the dangerous sort of stuff that may take that soft landing away from us. So it's definitely something to watch, and I think the market has it correct here. We're in a second inflation wave, so rates do need to move higher. And why we're having that second inflation wave is, of course, as we've been looking at on the channel, is because of what's happening with the price of a gallon of gasoline. National average is $3.67, but let's look at it a different way this week. These red states that you see here, this is gas prices over $4 a gallon. And so what you notice is the entire western side of the country is already above that critical $4 mark that they believe is going to have election influence. Illinois as well. You're starting to see, though not at the $4 mark, you're starting to see the Northeast start to have prices pretty close in that range as well. And of course, my beloved home state of Florida, first state in the South to get pretty close to the $4 level. This has tremendous election implications. We've talked about this before. The $4 barrier is sort of psychological, but it gives us a sense for how high do things need to go before we start to see election outcomes. And so, not surprisingly, you're starting to see White House chatter about what's going on in the oil market. Now, every other news show that you listen to is going to tell you, oh, this isn't political at all. These people are just, doing the correct strategic thing. That's not this channel, right? Everything that's happening this year is political. Jay Powell trying to keep rate cuts alive as long as he did, that was absolutely political. And then what we're seeing out of the Biden administration right now, they're authorizing further SPR releases, the SPR being the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. On the one hand, you could see the insight of a move like this. Well, this will certainly bring oil prices down. But on the other hand, you've got to be careful because this sends a very powerful signal to oil companies to not raise production. And it's not like the oil companies need to drill for more oil. They could just buy back their shares and continue to grow their profits that way. And so when you send signals like this, I think there'll be a short-term benefit in lowering the price of a gallon of gasoline, but there's going to be a long-term, more painful payback because oil companies are not going to bring supply online that we need to truly and naturally bring prices down. So what does it all mean? Powell pivots again? Well, Jay Powell's discussed the second inflation wave. That's pretty good. Markets responded to this by adjusting interest rates higher. I think that's completely correct. Chatter from the Biden administration indicates a willingness to authorize further SPR releases. That's the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Clearly, the Biden administration is watching the channel and following along and understands that $4 a gallon gasoline is important, and so they're going to do everything they can to prevent that. What does this all mean? Well, higher rates mean the economy is going to be further suppressed, so it's sort of bad news on that regard. SPR releases may have strategic significance. That's later on down the road. But I think what you can take away from what happened this week is that election year concerns abound. Everything that is happening this year, from geopolitical things over in the Middle East to SPR policy here to the Federal Reserve's policies around interest rates, it's all being driven by the election season. So we're in an election year. I told you it was going to be a roller coaster. We're seeing the first dip in the roller coaster happening right now. That's the news review. I'll see you this weekend for the markets review. Take care. Okay, friends, that was the video. Hope you liked it. If you found it informative, good, entertaining, I'd love if you could scroll down here beneath the video and give me a like there. It helps us out with the algorithm. And then if you want to be notified first of anything new that we upload to the channel, if you come over here, click subscribe, you'll be the first to know as soon as we upload anything. Appreciate it. See you soon.